of the group IMTF, Switzerland. Before that, he has worked in many countries, including the UK. He is excellent and fluent in English, German, French, and he can teach in all the languages. I would like to add one more. He is a very amazing musician. He brings a very powerful set of vocals. He plays a guitar and he also plays some other musical instruments. He has a private YouTube channel where he has sung so powerfully, and it's a pleasure to listen to him. I wish you go public with that music channel, but okay. Now,
thank you very much.
very, very awaited topic of this whole week, IMW 2022, the culture of neuromarketing. Over to you, Bart.
Thank you so much for this nice presentation. I will add a little bit of it in my presentation so that you can really situate myself, but it's not the goal of this presentation. So I will share my screen now. Right, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
Very good. Very good. So namaste, everybody. And one of the languages I'm learning actually is Hindi. So what I can say now is Mera naam Bart hai. And we spoke about Switzerland. One thing that you may not know, but the connoisseurs of Switzerland know that we eat fondue, which is melted cheese. And this melting cheese recipe is coming from the region where I live. So I live in Switzerland in the part of where this Gruyere cheese, it's a cheese that has a strong smell, is melted, and then we eat it with bread. So if one day you come to Switzerland, you should at least try it. It might a little bit be strange for you, but this is our culture. So who am I? I think about my education, everything is said on that subject. About the business, maybe just for your understanding, IMTF in Dutchfish is where I worked formerly in a long time ago. But actually, effectively, I'm still into business with tandem marketing, with Honor and Stenorome. And I was one of the pioneers in the NMSBA, which is the World Organization for Neuromarketing Science and Business Association. And I think everything has been said on my academic background. So that allows us to immediately go into the subject. The subject of today is the culture of neuromarketing, or neuromarketing as a culture. And why do we need to talk about neuromarketing? Well, let me just first say that we have to ask the question, do we have a problem? And obviously there is a problem that we need to solve. And can we solve it with what we know today? I guess not. I guess we have to do some research in other disciplines in order to find better solutions for the problems we have into marketing. But maybe if you have heard about neuromarketing, you might have one perspective on neuromarketing, which is quite a very technical view. And I want to show you that, in fact, that it's only one part of neuromarketing, and that the culture of neuromarketing is far more important than just the technical part. Then I want to show you in a use case. We always talk about marketing on the consumer-centric approach. Well, what does that mean if we bring in the culture of neuromarketing? What does that change from a perspective? And then, of course, at the end of this session, when I say neuromarketing as a culture, then I'm in fact talking about a paradigm. Is there a real paradigm available with neuromarketing, or is neuromarketing just a discipline? So that's on the menu for today. It's not fondue cheese, but it's something that is as delightful as our local meal. So let me jump into the presentation, and of course you can write down your questions into the chat. For the sake of getting my presentation done, I will not stop unless it's really a question of life and death. But if not, then please note your question, and then I will try after my presentation to answer your question and help you to get a better understanding of what I'm trying to talk about. So, do we have a problem in marketing? Well, if you look at the fact that if 60 new products are launched and only 2 become a success, I guess so that we have a problem. And these are not my numbers. These numbers, they come from Nielsen. They have been studied at Harvard University. There is a lot of information available on these numbers. It is a fact that you could ask yourself, how is it possible that companies that, and I'm not talking about startups, even companies like Nestle, Procter & Gamble are facing this kind of situations where they have spent a lot of money, had a lot of good ideas, excellent ideas, and still it didn't work out. Well, that brings us to another study that was done by Fornes Group. And the Fornes Group study said, asked the CEOs what they thought about marketing, and 80% of them said that marketers are disconnected with business results. Well, wouldn't you as a CEO think about that in that way? If you have your marketing people telling you this is going to be fantastic, this is going to be a breakthrough, and finally 1 out of 8 is just fantastic and all the others are average or even bad. In the same study, these CEOs say that 65% of marketers, they just live in la la land. They just blah, 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 but they don't really know what they're talking about. And wouldn't you? If they promise you that this product is going to be a great success, and after all, it isn't, then you think these guys are very good in storytelling, but they're less performant in bringing a product to the market and make it successful. It goes even so far that 33% says that they have a marketing department, but purely out of tradition, and that we cannot trust them in giving them real strategic decisions in their hands. They should not, we should not expect too much from the marketing department, they say. Let them do some branding and make some good ads and promotions, but that's not the core of the strategic marketing. Then we are already into operational marketing. So we have a problem, and if we want to solve the problem, then we have to do something different, because isn't insanity doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Aren't we now faced with a situation where something is not working in our model? Something that is at the basics of our way of thinking is not doing its job. So we need a change. We need to go and look for more information, for maybe different perspectives. And that's where neuromarketing comes in. And neuromarketing is, in fact, at its basics, a multidisciplinary approach. And why is it a multidisciplinary approach? Because, in fact, neuromarketing on itself, at the center, has human beings. You take human beings away, there's no sense of making any marketing. So there are so many sciences, so many disciplines that know stuff about human beings that might be important for us as a marketer. So we need to get and catch other insights on who people really are. Daddy! Sorry? Yeah? It's okay? So if we want to make better decisions in marketing, we need to understand how people make decisions. that is an essential knowledge. And our situation in marketing has come to this point because we have been focusing on human beings with a very limited model of how people take decisions and who we really are as human beings. Now, you might think that neuromarketing, or the idea that the way how people take decisions might not be only rational, that it is something new, but it isn't. Already in the 17th century, Benedict de Spinoza said that men are deceived in thinking themselves free, so they are not knowing any cause of their actions, is their idea of freedom. This is neuromarketing avant la lettre. Already in the 17th century, there was this basic and fundamental idea that our conscious way of looking at things is only a part of the game and does not allow us to explain our behavior. And you might think these are these crazy Europeans, but then let me introduce you to my friend Sri Aurobindo, who has been living at a couple of minutes by car from your university, and who said that one development of the utmost value is the awakening of the essential and instinctive body consciousness, which can see and do what is necessary without any indication from mental thought. So also he recognized that human beings do not have only conscious rational thinking that is involved in their decision making, in their actions, that can allow us to explain behavior. So what is then neuromarketing? Well, neuromarketing is any type of marketing activity, be that operational, be that strategic, which is using brain-related science and methods, and techniques which is based on these results. And which are these? First of all, there is neuroscience. Neuroscience brings us a very detailed understanding about brain states and physiological reactions that we can measure when we expose consumers to brands, products, and other materials. But we should know that neuroscience was not created and is not animated by marketing. No. They bring in a life science perspective. And we need to translate this life science perspective into a marketing perspective, which might lead sometimes to difficulties, because translation is always, to some extent, giving up some information, and it might be crucial information. The second important foundation of neuromarketing are the behavioral economics. Behavioral economics tries to find out how people make their decisions in the real world. And the real world is what? Is context. Something you cannot do when you put people in a scanner or put them 20,000 electrodes to make an EEG scan. So we also need to get understanding on how context influences decisions. And here we have an economics perspective, which is, of course, a lot closer. You might know nudging, and as you can see on the screen on the right side, at least my side, I don't know, maybe it's switching. You see this fly. This is a very popular example of what nudging means. Nudging means doing the right thing for the wrong reason. this fly is put into this sanitary device because it helps men to be a little bit more attentive of where they are doing the thing they do in this kind of devices. And they had an increase by just doing this. They had an increase of property of 85%. It was much more cleanness, of 85%. So they had like a very good result just by putting in the fly, and not by asking people to be more respectful, to show more respect for people who have to clean or people who come after them. So this is behavioral economics, is to find out how people make choices and how the context can influence the choice and not necessarily the reason. We always think that we are motivated by great ideals and etc., but a lot of our behavior seems to be strongly under influence of the context and what we understand from this context at a given moment. Another context is a typical context for a human being, as we are social animals, comes from social psychology. We do not think or act the same when people are present than when we're alone, or we do not act the same according to who are these people that are present. And it's interesting because this is, in fact, also a very old idea. And this is, I read this in Tantra philosophy, because Tantra philosophy says when you put different people together, they create an overmind. And this overmind will also influence what people think. Now think about it, you might all have been in a situation when you have taken the plane and we are waiting until they finally open the gate and start boarding. And what happens is one person gets up, second get up, and suddenly everybody gets up and you feel this urge to do the same thing. This is not something you say like you're discussing with yourself, what are the benefits if I stand up or where I not stand up. You just feel like a social pressure. And there are many situations where we adapt our behavior to what is around us, not because we have been consciously and rationally deciding it, but just because as social animals, we like to conform to the group, and adhesion to a group is very instinctive, it's very basic. So it's also very important to take into account this specific contextual aspect of our existence when we think about how people take decisions. And the last multidisciplinary foundation of neuromarketing is biology, and that is quite rather new, this biology idea, in the sense of course you could say, yeah, but life science is about biology. I agree with you, but if you had a chance to read Antonio Damasio, you would understand that there is also a perspective, a somatic perspective we can have on people's behavior, people's thinking, people's emotions. Why do we have all these ideas? Finally, we are still a biological system. We are still a biological entity that needs to survive and needs to develop in its environment. And here we have biology as a basic instrument that can help us to understand these aspects too. And therefore, I would like to integrate that into the multidisciplinary foundation of neuromarketing. So as you can see so far, neuromarketing is not about neuroscience and marketing. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit bigger because if we only focus on neuroscience, we only have this life science perspective. But we need more, because we also know that behavior is not just about the function in the brain, it's about dysfunction in the brain in relationship to what is going on. Context, social elements, and biological principles. So we get a lot of things coming together. And that brings me to the point that, in fact, in neuromarketing, we have two complementary perspectives. One is the technology and the methodology, and the other one is the culture. And the culture is there because, in fact, we have a multidisciplinary approach, and it means that we need a global concept. And because if you have if you accept, first of all, you need to accept, because we are coming from a period where specialization was very important. Now we're getting much more, if you look into the tendencies also in science and what they tell us in our research promotion programs from the government, we should go for multidisciplinarity. Why? Because, in fact, specialization gives you just one piece of the puzzle, but you lack sometimes the overview. And here we're talking about human behavior, so we need something bigger, because we know there are so many elements that we need to think about. So that brings us to the first point, that in a global concept with multidisciplinarity, humility is the key word instead of the power of specialization. I know everything. I know this is like that, and I don't want to talk about anything else because that's the way it is. Instead of saying, well, I know all these things and that is really very exciting, but I'm aware that there are other perspectives and that they are each having the same value. And that's, to me, humility. Humility is not going down or not above. Humility is to know your value within your context. And neuromarketing needs this humility of these different approaches. Not one of them is the leader. All of them bring something to the table. And all of them bring something to the table because we can then start connecting the dots between these different approaches. Yes, it demands a lot of intellectual effort. Absolutely. If you come to neuromarketing thinking you want to do something easy, then maybe you're not at the right place. Neuromarketing and human behavior on its own, it's complex because you need to connect dots to get a broader understanding. A broader understanding because you have different disciplines that bring these things to the table. You have social psychology, right? Behavioral economics, biology, neuroscience, and you have to try to find connections between them to get a broader and better insight. And of course, you have then, once you develop your hypothesis, go and try to find ways to connect with reality and see if that's really is true. And because there are so many, of course, there are many combinations possible, because the more dots you have, the more possibilities you have. I think that's quite clear. So you have a lot of potential for combining, but at the same time, the fact that you have this potential will normally, in a normal, open-minded human being, create also the awareness of this relativity. I've done this, but then I'm aware that, well, I sacrificed that and that and that. So that's also a possibility. I'm just doing this now because I think this is most interesting and has the best chance, but it's always relative. So it's getting always back also in the global concept of multidisciplinarity. The humility just fires back, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's an excellent thing to have. So if you look at neuromarketing, many people think that neuromarketing is a new way to measure. Whether it's my new campaign drawing attention Do I get a high emotional level when I show them this color or that color? Will they prefer that I have a blue package or a green package and all these things? I don't say it's useless, not at all. It's very useful because it can allow you to make real bad decisions. But you should not limit to that, because that's really a pity if you would do that. Because neuromarketing brings through this multidisciplinary approach a whole new understanding of our non-conscious part of our existence. And this non-conscious part, these 4 disciplines give a lot of information, not all of it. Anyway, knowledge on itself is always relative, but I don't want to make a philosophy class here. By the way, I have a bachelor in Thomistic philosophy, but that's not the subject. But the fact is that getting access to all this complementary information on how people behave and how important all these non-conscious processes are in this context, that's amazing. That's so much more than just measuring whether this or that is good. If you got all this culture with you, you can do so much more with it. Not just measuring, you can think. And it's not my idea here. I mean, really, I have all these mentors, and there are many more, but these are leading taught men in the industry, whom I read books with. Some of them are even good friends, and some of them I even wrote books together with them. So it's not my idea I'm telling here. I'm just trying to give you the understanding that when you think about neuromarketing, it's not about scanners, it's not about EEG. It's about understanding, deepening my understanding, opening my mind for other ways of seeing how human beings could act. And not only other human beings, let's start with ourselves. So as Daryl Weber says, the big opportunity for neuromarketing is to move it to the beginning of the process, because if you measure something, you're at the end. And let's say you're at the end and you find out that your measure is telling you you've done the wrong thing. What are you going to do? So you have to get back into the beginning of the process with this knowledge in order to make sure that you have a better chance to have a good result. But not only, because it's not only about operation, it's about becoming more smarter, to have a broader view of who is your customer. So neuromarketing as a culture is not bringing just magical tricks. Some of my colleagues in the industry unfortunately try to tell things like that, but it's not true. There is no easy way in neuromarketing. Of course, it's what we would like to believe, but it's not true. There are no magical tricks. What is true is that you can learn how to create meaning for this non-conscious part of the brain. That's something you can learn. That's not something that is a secret. There's a lot of knowledge about that. There's a lot of ways how you can do something in your communication where you activate the non-conscious mind because you do something meaningful for it. You give it a meaningful message to it. So you can learn about that. You can also learn how to get this message across. There are certain rules to respect. If you don't respect them, you get just a very different outcome. It's not about your message. It's about who is listening and what is he able to hear. We just think that everything is hearable. That's not true. Not at all. There are ways to communicate. I can learn you also to communicate how to make this non-conscious mind shut up and not listen to you. And very importantly, how to integrate emotions effectively. And that sets forth that you understand what is the real goal of emotions. Why do we have emotions? We might think that we have emotions as something that is really perturbating us. I don't want these emotions. Emotions are, let's get rid of them. You know, I like thinking. Give me thinking. That's sure. Well, emotions are there before thinking was there on this planet. And that's why Antonio Damasio, as one of the leading neuroscientists in this field, says, we are always emoting. And there is no such thing as thinking without emotions. So we can learn all these things and understand how you use emotions effectively, because you got an understanding what is the core function of an emotion in our existence. Not something that perturbates our life. It has a core biological essential function. And finally, you can learn how to be more efficient in your communication by using the shortcuts that we human beings take when we are making decisions. So apparently, it will come out like I thought. I will probably have a little bit more time than the 45 minutes, but as I said, no worries. At least for those of you who have the time, I will be available to answer your questions. So now let me give you a use case, an example, how we can apply these insights of understanding that we have to go above the classical way of thinking in marketing, the traditional way of thinking in marketing, with the consumer-centric approach, which is an essential, basic approach in marketing. And in fact, the traditional approach is the approach one, and which tells us, ask the customers what they want, and we will give it to them. That's the best thing. I spoke to the customer, he wants this or that, so I give it to them. Or is the customer able to tell us what he wants? If we ask ourselves that question, then maybe he is not, and maybe, or not maybe, in the second approach, which is neuromarketing based, what we are looking for is to understand the consumer. And from this understanding, help him to make the right purchase decision. So it's a very different way of looking at things. And let's first look in the classical traditional approach, because that's the one everybody believes is the right way to do the things. Now, is it? I don't know. If you ask people what they wanted, they would have said, faster horses, said Henry Ford. So again, what I'm bringing here is not new. What is new maybe is that you hear it for the first time. But this is an old idea that is around since a while. Successful entrepreneurs already knew 100 years ago that you just do not only ask the customer what they want, because they would say something like faster horses and not a car. So why wouldn't you do that to ask the customer? Well, let's take another successful entrepreneur. He's very clear. It's not the customer's job to know what they want. Jesus. wow, that's not what we are doing in traditional marketing. In traditional marketing, it's his job. He said he wanted that, so I do that, and now he has to be happy. Customers are not marketers, because that's giving away completely the responsibility in your customers' hands. And they are not marketing. Why? Because you cannot give them the full responsibility and expect from them that they understand what is possible. If we would do that, then we limit ourselves to what we could all deliver, because we think the customer has it all. He knows everything. We don't know anything. But that's not true, because he will want faster horses, not a car. He cannot make this kind of changes in vision. Why the hell would somebody like Steve Jobs create an iPhone? I mean, Nokia was quite a nice phone. Did he ask people? No, he did not ask. I will come to that, what he did. So customers are not marketers. It's not enough to ask them. I'm not saying you should not ask. I think every information is always very interesting, but you cannot stop there. You cannot say, he said it, so I'm justified. I have no responsibility as a marketer. That's wrong. You can also not expect from them that they think out of the box into new things and bring in new ideas. They're not creators. They're not creators. That's not their job as a customer. Otherwise, you have to pay them for it. And most of the time, if you're in a established market with an established product category, then what people are looking for is getting the best price. So if you want to do something for me, give me some discount. Bring the price down. Then I will be happy. And last but not least, and this is one of the foundations why traditional marketing thinks we just ask people, because it is based on the paradigm that customers can predict their own behavior, which is not true. We are not, as human beings, able to understand all the elements that have been involved in our behavior, in our decision making. There are numbers here. Some specialists say 99%, some say 95% of what we do is all decided non-consciously. Well, whatever the number is, it's a large majority. So if this is the case, however could we say what we will do if we already don't understand what we are doing now? Because we do not have access to all these processes, because they are non-conscious. So if your customer in the traditional approach and you ask them what he wants, and if you say, if you add this feature, I will buy your brand, I will buy your product. Many times they don't, just because they are not able to predict their own behavior. And this might scare you, by the way, but you shouldn't. There's a lot of intelligence also in your automatic system. So it's not that it is a stupid system. It's a very intelligent system. It's a very powerful system, and to some extent and on some aspects, much more powerful than what you can get in in a rational way of thinking. So in fact, what we are questioning here is the Homo economicus paradigm, that people know and can perfectly describe the mental processes on which they base their decisions, which is unfortunately, for those who still think this, It's not true. And again, you might feel insecure about such a thought, but your non-conscious is not your enemy, not at all, and is not stupid. But I cannot talk more about this, but maybe we will have a chance when I can get into a plane to India to have some more time to spend with you on this subject. So what is then approach 2? Well, what we want is understand. We want to understand, we want to know the why. What's behind? Why do they do the things they do? What are their motivations? Why is having us focus on their behavior and why they express this behavior? Because what we as marketers want, we want to shape behavior. And if we do not understand why they do the things they do, how could we help them to make the right decision? And so we want in neuromarketing understand what drives this decision and how we can shape these drivers in order to get the purchase decision happen. So the main difference is that we do not go and ask the customer what he wants, but we want to understand why he wants something. And then that information, we can work with it and find new ways. People with their mobile phone, with the Nokia, you also had a camera. And we liked Nokia because Nokia was quite comfortable in their way of manipulating. But Jobs' vision was understanding that people want comfort, want pleasure with this phone, want to communicate, interact with this phone, was to create not a technology, but an experience that allowed to respond to this fundamental need, to have something comfortable, to be in contact with others, to have a device that is nice because you have all the time this device. The reason why people buy an iPhone still today, it's a lot about emotion. It's not about technology. Probably you could even get from a technology point of view, maybe even better phones. But the reason why people buy a phone is not necessarily a technology choice. There's a lot of other things coming in. And that's what a non-traditional marketing approach can bring. And neuromarketing provides a lot of information and tools to measure that and to understand that. So, coming to my conclusion, is neuromarketing a discipline that you could have or not when you're studying marketing? Or is it a new marketing paradigm? And, well, you're not surprised with my answer, I guess. Let's keep it just very simple. If human beings are the central subject of marketing, then neuromarketing as a culture provides new fundamental insights on how these human beings behave and brings in a new paradigm, not the old one that says that people are there to tell you what they want and that's enough what they want and there's nothing more to this. That's not what we are bringing. With neuromarketing, we are bringing a new paradigm to understand how human beings take decisions, and that you need multidisciplinary approach to grab a broader and better understanding. So also in my school, these are things I am discussing today, because until today in my school, neuromarketing is a minor option, and it will probably move to a major option, because it is not just a discipline you can do or not do. If you accept that human beings are the central subject of marketing, then any knowledge that you can bring to bear to tackle the questions you have in marketing should be taken into account. Certainly knowing that the traditional way of doing things is leading to a lot of problems, and we need to solve these problems. The insights you get also from neuromarketing, they go far beyond marketing, because we're talking about human beings, and my students are not only motivated because of the marketing aspect, but they are also motivated because of what they learn to understand themselves and to understand their friends and family. So neuromarketing as a culture, let me finish with that sentence. It's not a discipline, but it is a real innovator of marketing as such. Thank you very much for your attention. And I love questions, so looking forward to read your questions. I had not an access to the...
Thank you, Bart.
You're welcome.
And the questions will be coming up in the chat box, and I'll be reading them out. You don't worry about it, because suddenly they'll start galloping there in the chat box. And I will avoid the repeat questions. So we'll try to organize it for you.
Okay. So then I can take a sip of my tea.
Sure. Well deserved. I think.
I hope I was not too fast, and I mean it is of course a subject that raises a lot of questions. And
okay, the first question, Amir, he asks you: are humans resilient to psychological tricks in marketing?
Psychological tricks in marketing exist since people are doing business. I mean, I can imagine 4,000 or 5,000 years people doing business on the market using psychological tricks. But neuromarketing is not about psychological tricks. It's not about tricking in people in doing something they don't want to do. It's about understanding what people deeply want and trying to connect that with your product. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work. If you think your product can fulfill these needs, then you should try it, but then you should learn how to connect with these needs.
We have
so I would even say that humans are really resilient to it if your proposition and the way, even if you use the best neuromarketing tools, if it's not compatible what you profoundly need as a consumer, you will not hook into this. And if you would, you wouldn't do a second time. And today, companies, what they need above all are, because we're in a lot of saturated markets, they need customers that are loyal, that come back, and then you cannot afford yourself something like that.
We have the next question, Priyadarshini. She says,
nowadays,
you keep pace with changing tastes and preferences of customers?
Okay. Whether it is a challenge.
There's a lot of change in consumer tastes and preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult to understand their behavior. So how does neuromarketing help in that?
Well, because I think we are not into the details of taste and behavior. We are trying to understand the reason why. And you might have very different behaviors, but the reason why you express these behaviors might still stay the same. So from case to case, I mean, it's a very general question, and I have no no answer to it. But my experience learns me that a lot of different what is seen as different behavior might not have a different cause, might not have a different reason. I profoundly believe, and this is from a biological perspective, that what we do is looking for meaning, and meaning is not the philosophical idea. Think about it. As a human being, as a biological system, my biological system tells me, as a main reason, you have to survive and develop yourself in this environment. So our brain is here for what? Our brain is here to help us that all the senses we get in, we build it to something meaningful within that perspective. Okay? So we might change our behavior, but the basic reason why we do it might still be the same. So neuromarketing might help you to discover that changing in behavior is not really a problem, as long as you understand what is behind it and you work on the reasons.
We have the next question, Muhammad Ajmal. He asks you, how can a consumer resist the marketing strategies? That's that's his drift. He says, how do I make my own decision despite the marketer?
I mean, this is a question as if if I get back to what I said before, our brain is a meaning machine. We build meaning, and in this meaning building, we can take some influence, but we do not have the full influence. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this meaning machine has the ability to decide on its own, because it needs to go fast, or because it identifies some reasons that you're not aware of. And so tackle these types of strategies. Sometimes you might. In my class, what I do is I give students I teach them what kind of techniques are used into supermarkets, and then they have to go into the supermarket and identify them and make a kind of a reportage. They have to tell me what they saw and everything, so that they tell me that they will go differently into the supermarket in the future. I guess so, but I think it's very difficult to keep that level on everything and say, oh, here they tried to, etc. But then again, never forget that if you think you can trick in your customers into buying something they don't need and that is not congruent with their needs, so they will not create the value with your product, then you lose them. If you want to afford them to lose them, well, you don't even need neuromarketing for it. You can just lie. That's a very simple way of doing it. So don't make your life so complicated by getting neuromarketing involved. Just lie. Tell a lie. That's it.
Yes. Don't always be an insurance salesman. We have Lakshman Naidu's. He expresses a concern. The advancement in neuromarketing can lead to breach of confidentiality, as marketers they collect data which is more than what is just marketing related.
Yeah, but that's not I don't think it's a specific question to neuromarketing itself. You can ask Google to tell you what they own about you, and then that when we talk about neuromarketing, this data issue is of course an important issue. My personal view on this is that we have today technology where we could protect ourselves with it, and that's blockchain. If they would allow us to have all these data under our property into a blockchain, then we would know who does what with it if they want to do it, and we could sell it ourselves instead of getting other people sell it. So I don't see it as I don't see it as a threat specifically for neuromarketing. But of course, we have sensitive data. But most of the technologies I know are quite well advanced in protecting this anonymity. In the Neuromarketing Science and Business Association, which I said is the professional organization worldwide, we have an ethical commission that takes care of these questions. And so, but of course, you're never sure what people might do.
We have Dr. Victor's question. If humans are at the core of marketing, why do businesses invest so much on branding?
That's an excellent question.
How does a neuromarketer view brands and brand building?
Yes.
You're doing both,
That's an excellent question. I can answer that very, very simple. Because the brand, and that has been studied in research and confirmed by research. The brand is mainly viewed by the non-conscious mind. And here it comes, and that's why I like your question also, is we are using the same processes we use to interact with people. So for us, for the non-conscious mind, a brand is a person. And the book I published with Peter Steidel is about brand vision archetypes. Unfortunately, it's in French, so cannot give you a copy, unless some of you might speak French. Why not? We're in Pondichéry, by the way. So it's a very good question, Victor. It's true, but it is strongly connected. And if there is something that is really important, which you should never ignore, is your brand, and learn what a brand means for the non-conscious mind. That will save you a lot of trouble.
We have the next question, Ajayan. Can you name some instances in history of neuromarketing where it has played a significant role in fields other than business?
Yeah. Well, there are, for instance, in our organization, the LMSBA, we have done a project on smoking and stop smoking, where we, through our network of international organizations, companies, and universities, have studied publicity on smoking and find out how bad the publicity in fact was, and why some of the stop smoking publicity would even push people to smoke than not. So and my new company, we are also in this field active, because what we do is we try to apply some neuro marketing technology and artificial intelligence in order to help people to become more aware of their beliefs. And that can be important for a company culture, but that can also be important for any. Well, actually, we work on an addiction program, helping people through our technology to become aware: do I really have a problem or not? I mean, if I know that most of you are having a engineering background and a very rational background, and you're probably, most of you, more intelligent than I am. But it's not because I'm intelligent. It's not because I can think rationally so good and I'm so brilliant that you can ignore or think that this non-conscious part has no influence on your behavior. And so yes, you can use it for any behavioral change you want. And I personally believe the behavioral change campaigns, well, they must be individual, because your beliefs are not the same than mine, and they function in a different way with you and mine.
Okay, now we have questions from YouTube. Ravindra Arora was our student decades ago. I'm so happy to welcome Ravindra Arora. He says, how do you understand the brain of online consumer or traveler? Because he's an MBA in tourism. So his question is about, how do you understand an online consumer, and how do you understand a traveler who search for travel experiences and services online and then decide to buy from a website? Can neuromarketing help? They are facing the worst crisis.
Yes, of course. Well, there are two aspects. I think you should first of all think about your concept. What is the meaning of your your concept. Where do you want to connect with your customer? Secondly, when it comes to the website, you should really watch out what I said before. How you communicate with an unconscious mind. How do you create meaning? Use some shortcuts so that it is going a little bit faster, and look out. I mean, using emotions, it's not just enough to use emotions. You have to have the right emotions and give them the right contextual part so that they can really work for you. Yes, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of literature available on that level. But if you take some basics, if you learn more about priming, for instance, priming is a lot used into online stories. Yeah.
And you have Kirti Datta there. Welcome, Kirti Datta. She's watching from YouTube. And she says it's a great perspective on neuromarketing. And how can we understand the meaning of the customer when they say something and probably mean something else?
Well, this is a very good question, and from Kirti. Well, there are simple technologies we can use. One of them is response time testing. What is response time testing? Response time testing is based on the basic idea, the paradigm behind it is that our brain, in order to create meaning, does not only have neurons, but needs to connect them. Maybe you might have heard the term synapse. Okay, so these synapses, they can work slowly, a little bit faster, or very fast, depending on how often I've been making this connection. And what we do in response time testing is we measure the quality of this connection. And that tells us something about, are people just saying yes because, well, they did not say no? Or do they really say yes? If they answer very fast, we can measure that this is really a strong belief, because this is a road they traveled on a regular basis. So this gives us a kind of a probability that within a given situation, this kind of attitude might influence their behavior. So we can do that. Yes, Kitty.
We have Amir's question again. He refers to thinking fast and slow, Daniel Kahneman. And he says that people are irrational. That is, Kahneman argues that way. So how can we make sure we make rational decisions? By the way, Amir, I don't believe in the superiority of rational decisions over irrational decisions. No, over to Pat.
Well, let me tell you something here. There is no such thing as a rational decision. Oops. No, why do I say that? It's because we always need to validate our decision by an emotion. And some research has shown that people who have had a stroke in the part of the brain that manages their emotion cannot take a decision because they lack the emotional validation. And think about yourself. Any decision you take, what is important for you is to say, oh, I was very intelligent here. I had really quite a rational decision here. Well, even if you tell that to yourself, why do you tell it? To feel good. You want to feel good. Come on. That's the only thing you want. You don't want to be the most brilliant, intelligent guy. You want to feel good. If that's the way you will feel good, then go for it. But there is no such thing as a pure rational decision. Of course, there are decisions that there are methodologies, and you probably learned that in the management school, how you can try to avoid biases of your brain. But at the end, when you take the decision, you need an emotional validation. So I would not just try to focus only on rationality. Give them a nice and great emotion. Yeah.
We have Maria James. Maria, she asks that students from economics and commerce background, what is your advice? I'm sorry. Maria James' question is, 1 in every 4 people is an online shopper. What is the role of intuition and risk in the formation of online trust?
Intuition and risk. Okay. I see the question, Maria. Because yes, if I understand, just tell me if I'm wrong. If you make an online shop, one of the key questions you ask yourself: who are these guys? What are they up for? Are they going to steal my credit card number? And what are all kind of things bad things that can happen. Your question is, can intuition help me here to avoid this trap? Or is your question, what strategies should we have as a online shop in order to make people feel more comfortable? Yes, of course. Okay, then if we want to make them feel more comfortable, we have to use primes. We have to bring in meaningful aspects for them. For instance, you will feel more comfortable if they can find out, for instance, that your friend has been buying something yesterday, and you see these people bought from us, and you see pictures and you see statements. These are things to build up the trust, because we are social animals. If they do it, I do it again. I do it also. But you can call this, of course, intuition, this kind of mechanism, and it is probably so that your intuition is for a part this automatic intelligence you have by thinking, okay, they did it, so I will do it too. You can use symbols. You can use symbols that are trustworthy, that people know. And things like that. So you have to create a lot of meaningful elements that are related to feeling comfortable with it. And then you can hopefully have a little bit more of people connecting with you. But it's a very good question, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the industry are thinking that they have to rationalize this. And like I said, the question is, how do I feel? It's not what do I think. Our emotions are 5 times faster than our thinking. So when I say what I feel, and afterwards I say, oh, but let me think about it, I'm rationalizing something. I'm justifying something. My emotion has since a long time decided. Only I was not aware of it.
I think I know where that question came from, because she's a student of data science, and what they do is they download all this data and crack it and try to machine learning and things like that. The biggest problem with online reviews is there are many fake reviews and paid reviews. So that is their concern probably, and they haven't got out of that jinx of how do I reach into that intuitive process rather than go by the data.
Okay. It's very interesting. It's very exciting.
Now, Amir has another question. Looking at your educational background, Bart, you're a social scientist. So neuroscience and so sociology, political science, the communication science. This is your background, and you have got into neuroscience rather nicely. So how do students of economics and commerce start learning about psychology and neuroscience? What should they do? Should they do courses in psychology to get into it?
The question, the problem is that sorry to talk about a problem, but you might, what I said about the multidisciplinarity. There's still a lot of people into neuroscience. They say what I know is the only truth, and then you find psychologists and they say the same. It depends on their open-mindedness. That's the problem. So if you I went there through self-study, and sometimes I take some online classes left and right, but most of the things I went through self-study, reading, and trying to connect the dots. But that's my personality. So always be, I would say, if you do, find out how open they are to other disciplines. If you find that they are really narrow in, then don't spend your time there, unless you have enough intellectual capacity to take that with a lot of critics. but then I mean you're spending a lot of energy for nothing. So I would avoid that.
Actually, the next question has already been answered. But anyway, Guhan asks, neuromarketing, will it be a threat for human privacy?
We're too late.
Actually, Google knows more about you than you do.
Yes.
Nilesh Jain has a question. In this competitive world, how neuromarketers can induce in the mind of humans when it comes to the subconscious mind? Can you plant, ideas into the subconscious mind, and how do neuromarketers do that?
Well,
Your anti-smoking campaign, was it?
well, the anti-smoking campaign showed us that that there are a lot of primes. A prime, what is a prime? A prime is a non-conscious association that you make and that influences your behavior. So, for instance, even if you show people an advertisement of somebody smoking and with a red line, you should not smoke or something like that, what the brain tells us is that you see the guy smoking, and if you see somebody smoking, you think about smoking, so you're primed to smoke. Whatever is written around it, whatever kind of arguments, like you can get killed and whatever. The problem is you get killed in 10 years or in 30 years. So who cares? In the future, we are just wonderful people. But when it comes for today, we act in a very different logic.
Okay, we have the next person, Devendra Raj Purohit. That is, what is the most disturbing ethical aspects of neuromarketing?
That's a good question. Well, I agree that these data that are collected within neuromarketing should, by any means, always, and without any exception, remain confidential. Because we're, to some extent, I mean, we're talking about what is in the deepest part of the people, of persons. There should nobody be able to get access to that. That is the most ethical, disturbing aspect if somebody would not respect that rule. If that's the case, our organization will immediately react with all the means we have. You will be out of business. So you will be excluded, and we will make a lot of trouble for you, if not even legal consequences. Because if somebody does this, he's a threat to our industry.
Yes, it's when you get somebody to open up to you, it's like you're opening up to a therapist. The therapist doesn't share it.
Exactly.
It's professional ethics.
Yes.
Right.
Well, but I don't, as a neuromarketer, I don't need to know who you are.
Right. Okay. So shall we say that this is all I can see? That was the last question I saw there, and I really don't have any words, but you have taken us to a different plane today. Every slide, every picture that you chose, like phenomenal. Okay, there is one more question. Let me not disappoint this guy. Vishal Singh. Like products, politicians will present themselves in most favorable ways to get votes. What if important corrupt politicians know what kind of picture or speech will lead to the most votes, that they will win the election no matter what?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at reality, I don't think he needs neuromarketing to get voted. So, and I don't think again, I don't think you can with neuromarketing manipulate people to a point that that there cannot just be a difference between what I expect as a human being and what they finally provide. So of course you can give yourself a face and a brand, because finally it's about a brand, a politician that respects all these needs. But then, you know, if after that you don't deliver, you get rejected. And so I don't think they can manipulate once, but they cannot manipulate twice, of course. But then again, I mean, why would you need neuromarketing? Just tell a lie. That's what they know best.
But I think this question is coming because we have spin doctors, consultants, brand consultants for politics now, and they have given these ideas that in your speeches you use positive words, and then they do a word cloud and show these are the number of positive words used by this person in his election rallies, and
All
these are
right.
the number of negative words used by this person in election rallies. They show the word clouds and kind of they spin doctor the election communication.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
This
Okay.
is what happens, and maybe this is the trend. You just take the US elections, the positive
But
words.
then I would go one step further. You know,
Yes,
how do these words then connect to what
your
I
brain.
call semantic networks? I mean,
Exactly.
to meanings. And then you get something deeper, because what we are looking for, after all, is meaning, not in the sense of a philosophy, but in the sense of a biology. And if you get to that, then we get to deep-rooted drivers of behavior and all these things, which are profound mechanisms of our existence. And luckily, they are there. Luckily, they are there. We wouldn't be sitting here if only our thinking would organize our life. My goodness, that
Uh,
would not go very far.
okay, we have Maria again. What could be the reason behind kids going after a brand? Children.
No difference. Why should there be any difference? And of course, they are very sensitive to it. I have my colleague here in Switzerland who has been doing some research recently on publicity for kids, and we come to similar results with kids and adults,
Oh,
unfortunately.
wow.
Yes, but they're human beings. They are looking for meaning from their point of view. So if you bring something meaningful and you can connect, then it's done. He was trying to find out, ways on how can we bring kids. I don't know how far it is in India, but over here, one third of youngsters between 15 and 25 is overweight.
Okay.
I don't know how the situation is in India, but I did not only see small-sized people when I was there 2 years ago. So and a lot is done through this. What these companies try to do. To me, these guys are the next ones we need to put our bullets on, because it's not normal that we have our society, and not only in India, America, Europe, Africa, everywhere, you see a growing population of people with this type of problems. And where is it coming from? From the same type of industry. So there's really something to be done, and neuromarketing can help here. Neuromarketing can help here to get people back to sane behaviors and then oblige these industries to adapt their behavior.
Okay. I think we have had a scintillating talk and a more scintillating discussion, question and Q&A after the session. With this, we close the masterclass on culture of neuromarketing.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your questions and for accepting me to have this talk to you. And hopefully, Corona will move away, and I would be very happy to learn to know you in person and deepen this part. You have time to think about what you would like to deepen, and then tell to Professor Chandra Seran, and then we will see each other and have some fun on discussing all this.
Thank you, Professor Bhatt, for being with us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
But we have this culture every day that we ask the speaker to choose some gesture that we make for the group photograph. All of us turn the videos on, and you can pick